Peter Gabriel is an English rock musician, singer, songwriter, producer, label owner, studio owner, and philanthropist. He started his career as the bonkers lead singer of Genesis from 1967, and he left in 1975. And since then, he's pursued a solo career, but it has to be said sporadically. He has promoted world music significantly through the Real World Studio and the Real World label. He has released 4 self-titled albums and 4 two-letter titled albums, and also an album called Scratch My Back, which is an album of covers, and an album called New Blood, which is an album of orchestral remakes of his own songs.
Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of an album by Peter Gabriel, which was released in 1982. So, this was his 4th solo studio album. It was officially titled Peter Gabriel. It is known generally as Peter Gabriel 4 and as Security. So, all of the initial 4 Peter Gabriel albums have another name that they're known by. One of them is Mount, for example. And most of those are ones that have been just kind of developed through the fan base. Security, however, was an official name for the album because it was the name that was used for release in the States, which Peter grudgingly agreed to. He was quite determined not to give albums titles to his albums, being an eccentric kind of person. When he did start giving names, he then seemed to stick to names for 2 letters. So and Us and Up, and more recently IO. And his next album coming, I believe, is OI. And he's mooted that it might be called Oi as a result. Anyway, to this album. I have a copy of this, but it's not an album that I've played much, so I don't really know it. The only track I really know on this is Shock the Monkey, which was a hit. It's art rock. You could well say that this is almost the definition of art rock in some ways. Now, let's talk about the definition of art rock. I'm going to say that it's something that's not straight rock, but it's not progressive rock. And on that journey between normal rock and progressive rock, it's about here. It's somewhere in between. It's more interesting and more, I guess, pretentious. Also, if you want a definition of art rock, you go listen to some Kate Bush and listen to some Peter Gabriel, and this is what you're going to get. That kind of and listen to some David Bowie. But the problem with David Bowie is he's done lots of different styles. Anyway, here we go. This is unusual at times in its sound. It's very production heavy, and it has this kind of mixture. So it brings in some kind of world music feels and sounds, and lots of different sounds in play, but with quite a bit of synthesis going on as well. So there's a use of a Fairlight CMI here, apparently on every track, which was a hugely expensive sampler. And we look at the year, 1982, this is really early for the use of this kind of stuff, to be honest. And so there are, I think, 5 or 6 different synths named in the credits of what's in here, including Prophets and Moogs and all sorts of things. But then there's this world music thing, and particularly in some kind of the drums and non-traditional drum sounds and percussion, but things like Ethiopian pipes. We've got a lot of different people involved in the playing. This was a band that he put together, and I think he was fairly consistent with this band for a while. We've got Tony Levin on bass, who's one of my favourite bassists. Check out some of the stuff that he's done on Chapman Stick if you're interested. It's amazing stuff. And I have had the privilege of seeing him live whilst he was supporting Peter Gabriel. Peter Hamill on backing vocals, who's another name from the history of progressive rock, who was the lead guy for Van der Graaf Generator here, and then lots of other people. So apparently the music was for this was built from the percussion upwards. So he started by getting beats together by using a drum machine and building on that, and then the last thing to come was the lyrics. And musically, it uses quite a lot of the tropes that I think I know that I would say are very Peter Gabriel. And I think is at the point where he's really establishing this sound. So for the next 40, 4 years we are now from here. It's you can hear these sounds and go, yes, that's a very Peter Gabriel kind of approach. It's big, it's dramatic, and it's serious, but I love it. It's a great sound. His vocals are really strong, they're expressive and versatile. Reading about the album, I was quite, I'm not sure what the right word, the reaction was, quite amazed, I think, to read that apparently he recorded each vocal 20 times. And then alongside the producer, another producer, they went through each one of them and rated each word on a score of 1 to 10. And then the final is stitched together from the best bits of these 20 different takes, which I would say is typical Peter Gabriel over the top production. And is part of the sort of production approach that has made me think that there are no lengths to which a producer will not go to get what they want out of stuff. Somehow, despite the level of production here, for me, it never starts to feel soulless. But I think that Peter Gabriel pioneered some of the thoughts of really taking production seriously, spending a lot of time and care. And to my mind, this peaked in the album Up, which came quite a few years later, which was just astounding from the way it's produced. Back to this album. The songs are an eclectic set of different things. I'll give you some examples. So, Rhythm of the Heat is about Carl Jung being overwhelmed by hearing some drummers and watching some dancers in Kenya. Family and the Fishing Net is about wedding rituals, modern wedding rituals. Lay Your Hands on Me is about healing through touch. Stop the Monkey is about jealousy. Some of this is kind of arty stuff, definitely. So, in general, I think that there are people who don't like self-indulgently pretentious rock. And if that's one of you, you'll hate this. If, like me, you do quite like the self-indulgent pretentious rock and the big sounds and the ambitious feel of things like this is pretty glorious. It is. And I do try and review these albums as standalone listening experiences. On this occasion, I'm going to have to do a little bit of, because I know quite a bit about, I'm well in the Peter Gabriel stuff. Compared with some of the albums to come, I don't think he's quite hit the spot yet. It's coming out of his first few solo albums when he was a bit more poppy, maybe, and there are fewer memorable songs on this. So I would say this is a bit of a transitional album for him. It is strong though, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, as you can see from the score. That's what I think of this album. As always, I'd love to know what you think of the album. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you agree with me? What do you think of the review? What do you think of Peter Gabriel? Anything you want to throw in here, I'd love to hear from you. But that's it from me for now.
Looking out the window, I see the red dust clear. High up on the red rock stands the shadow with the spear.